Baby, for some reason I feel that I need you more now. Am I wrong, or can I feel our hearts connect as one? When everyone has gone and we are on our own, till then I follow roads that never take me home. But if you find me there, oh, I'll show you where there ain't no lies. Oh, just look in my blue eyes.
Back. You must be missing me so bad. When you left, you said that I don't deserve you, but I can see that you don't wanna lose what we had. Oh, you're the one that I need. Let's just take it slow and just breathe. Loving someone is not easy, you know, but it makes us feel alive. So we go with the flow. Just love me harder, have no mercy on me, just tell me louder. If you're loving me, just love me harder, have no mercy on me, tell me louder. If you're loving me, can I tell you what I want? Can I tell you what I need? Can I tell you what I want? Can I tell you what I need? Tell you what I need. Can I tell you what I want? Can I tell you what I need? Can I?
Hello, friends. How's everyone today? I know it's later than usual, but I ended up having to do a bunch of stuff this morning, so I wasn't able to get on here and hang out. So I figured since I have the house to myself right now, I can do that right now. Hope everybody's having a great day. I found some, I think, fun videos for us to watch. We'll see. One's like a tour of Jerusalem during like Jesus's time, and so that's more of like the historical stuff of just like how buildings were and stuff, and I like that kind of stuff. I'm a kind of a history person, so even without all the religious like back stuff, it's still interesting to see, you know, recreations like that and the amazing things they can do on a computer today, where you can actually see like how things were if Jesus had existed during the time that he was supposed to exist, and how those things looked and how that culture looked and, you know, how that culture kind of influenced the people who lived within it. So I'm kind of excited about that because I like that kind of stuff and I think it's cool. And then I have this other one that says they know where Lot's wife is, and they're going to show us like where supposedly Lot's wife is. I've seen pictures of like I don't know how to, like the rock or whatever that they claim is Lot's wife. But I thought that would be interesting just to see what their perspective on that was and why they think that's Lot's wife. I'm sure it's going to be just ridiculous, you know. I mean, it's not a historical event, and we don't have any proof that, you know, Sodom and Gomorrah even happened. But I am interested to know how they got the idea that this rock that is formed in the middle of the desert is somehow Lot's wife from, you know, years and years ago, thousands of years ago. Oh, you're sore? I'm sorry. I can't get my booster yet. I'm still waiting, but I don't remember which shot, if it was the first or the second one, but I remember one of them was like it made me super sore. I'm glad I didn't get like sick like a lot of people said that they did from like their shots, but yeah, I don't remember which one it was, but one of them, my arm hurt real bad after getting one of those shots, so hopefully the booster isn't as bad, but if you're sore, maybe I'll get that soreness too. I don't know. I'm still waiting. Yeah, Leon missed our witchcraft school guy yesterday, which is sad because he wanted to be here because he practices witchcraft, and so he knows a lot more about that. And I like to have people on here who actually know what they're talking about because, you know, I don't have any like experience in that, you know, type of stuff because I was raised Christian and I was told, you know, it's satanic, don't go near it, don't do this, and a lot of like what that guy said in the video yesterday. Oh, yeah, very much is what I was raised on, where, you know, Satan and witches go together hand in hand, and you know, I talked in that video yesterday that I kind of learned a little bit about like witchcraft stuff, just a tiny bit, because I did like a kind of like a religious course for the youth group when I was helping teach youth group, but I don't remember like any of that because that was probably like over 10 years ago. But I do remember that it wasn't like everything I looked into it had nothing to do with Satan, so and I told the kids that like the little bit of knowledge that I did gain from the things that I learned that, you know, it's not what people claim it is. And I don't know if there is such a thing as satanic witchcraft and that's separate from like just regular witchcraft, but from my knowledge, Satan has nothing to do with witchcraft, and, you know, people in the church will just make that one thing because they don't understand. They don't understand that like different practices and different religions can have different gods and things, because to them anything that is not of the Abrahamic God is just Satan or demons, and they can't like separate Satan from just people believing other things. Like if they believe anything outside of the Bible and God, they believe there's Christian witchcraft. I know I've seen some people talk about being Christian witches, which was always interesting to me because I felt like that was, well, I guess growing up, I felt like that was an oxymoron because I was told it was satanic. But now that I know, I don't know enough to like comment too much on it, but I know that it's not what the Christian church claims it is, so. And I found it interesting that he always was talking about, satanic witchcraft. And it's like, I don't know. From my perspective and from what I've heard and seen from other people, like, there are Satanists, and most of the Satanists are atheists who just basically troll Christians with Satan because they know it'll drive Christians crazy if Satan is involved in anything in their lives. And then, witchcraft, from what I've looked at, it has nothing to do with Satan at all. So I know people in the church, they don't go look at those things and they don't actually dive into them and find out where they actually came from and, the backstories to them. Which is really sad because I feel like you should have knowledge on, especially if you're a Christian, because you should have knowledge on other religions as a Christian because, our whole thing, well, at least in evangelical Christianity, like, the whole reason you were, saved and stuff, like, your purpose in life was to go out and save other people, and you can't just save other people when you don't have all of the knowledge of other religions. I feel like you have to know what you're going up against. And in church they're always like, oh, you're going up against demons, you're going up against Satan, like, he's gonna be an angel of light and he's gonna make all these religions and make people think that they're all the same way to God. And that's kind of how they explained universalism, is that it was just Satan's way of trying to help people think that all ways lead to God, but in the Bible it says only Jesus leads to God. So oh wow. Yeah, I don't know much about Odin and all that. I need to learn more about, like, those kind of religions, because I feel like I've only learned about, like, more of the mainstream religions, which isn't bad, but I think there's, like, other religions that are not as mainstream today that would be really interesting to look into and find out what they actually believed. But yeah, so yesterday was interesting, and the day before that, just looking at that. And I had a lot of people on here that said that, that guy was just a liar, or I don't know. I still don't know if I believe he's a liar or if he legitimately has, like, some mental issues that need to be addressed, but instead of addressing them, he goes to a church that says these things are real, so it just makes it more difficult to deal with because he's not going to get help for those things because he thinks God's going to help him. And I don't think he's stable enough to help himself, so I don't know. But I thought today we could do something a little lighter, hopefully. I don't know what... I never watched, like, these videos before because, like, I want to have, like, real reactions to them and actually be able to talk about them. But sometimes I wonder if I watched them before, if I would have better talking points because I would know what was coming. But I also like just being on here and talking to people. And watching it with people, I think, can give me different perspectives, too, of what they might see in the video versus what I might see in the video. Because, I come from one perspective in life. But even people who came from, like, different denominations and things in just the Christian church alone, like, they have all different perspectives and different opinions on certain things, so that makes it really interesting. And I didn't really understand the whole, like, denomination difference thing until I got into high school, when I was going to a Christian school, but I had all these teachers, and they were Christian, but they all went to different, like, Christian churches, so they all had very different ideas on things. So I would have, like, one Bible teacher that was, like, super, like, just normal Bible that I was used to, and then I remember in high school I had one that was, like, a Calvinist, and he just went off the rails about things that I had never even heard before in my life, and I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I have never heard any of these things. And yeah, it's It's weird how there's so many different clashes and things within those denominations. And I didn't know that till high school. I thought Christianity was all the same. Like, no matter what denomination you went to, it was all based on faith and believing in Jesus. But as I got older, I realized that that wasn't the case, and that, you know, different, they make different rules for different churches and stuff, so. And I grew up, like, more mainstream evangelical, where, you know, you're supposed to worship God, and you're supposed to honor God, and you're supposed to, like, read your Bible every day and stuff. You needed a denomination to be saved? Well, what denomination then? Because there's so many, and you would have to know which one was the right one. Yeah, no. Well, and it's funny too, because, like, I grew up, my parents were both raised, like, Nazarene. So I went to, like, a Nazarene church until I was, like, 4 or 5. I remember very little of it because I was so little, and it wasn't, like, it didn't have a huge impact on me. But when I turned, like, I don't know when exactly, 4 or 5, my parents decided they were not going to be a part of the Nazarene church anymore, and they jumped on, like, the Pentecostal bandwagon. But, like, mainstream Pentecostal, so it was, like, Assembly of God. So from, like, 5 until I left for college, I was going to the Assembly of God church. They worship 3 gods. I mean, technically, Christians worship 2 gods because they worship Yahweh and they worship Jesus, which is against what the Old Testament says, because there's only supposed to be one God, so. But the Trinity is how they get away with that, even though the Trinity is a ridiculous idea that can never work in reality. But yeah, I went to a Pentecostal church, and I remember, like, there was just fighting within my own family because my grandparents are still very much Nazarenes. Like, they've been Nazarenes their whole lives. And my dad was raised Nazarene, and my mom was raised Nazarene, and when they started to go to Pentecostal church and, like, speaking in tongues and, like, healing and being slain in the spirit and all that, like, my grandma was not happy. And, you know, even to this day, she really did not like the churches that we were raised in because she didn't think they were biblical churches, because she doesn't think that those things are what people think they are. So she doesn't look at them as, like, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but basically, like, she doesn't believe some of the things that are done within the Pentecostal church are Christian, which is funny because, like, that's where her grandkids were raised, and her son and daughter-in-law, like, went for a long time, and she never said that, like, we weren't Christian. She just didn't agree with the fact that, you know, we did some of those spiritual things that she didn't think actually came from God, so. Yeah. And it's just weird when you think about it, because I don't know, I guess I just didn't think about it when I was a kid, because it was like, we're all Christian, why does it matter? We all believe in Jesus. But there are a lot more I don't know, deeper things that people don't talk about until they get older and realize that, oh, this is, like, not something I should actually ignore, because they're all, like, all these denominations say different things, even though they claim that they all believe the same thing, so. Yeah, it's weird. Alright, should we see, all about Lot's wife? Guess we'll see. Lot's wife, pillar of salt. It's gonna be loud.
Guys, remember the 2 cities that God destroyed? Sodom and Gomorrah. The cities were here. So guys, let's see. Lot's wife and Mount Sodom.
I've heard that in the Dead Sea you can, like, there's so much salt in it that you can just, like, float really well without actually, like, trying. I think that'd be fun to go and just be in there to see how that works, but I don't see myself ever going to that side of the world.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Veronica. If today is your first time to check Cool Kenyan in Israel, and if you are my favorite...
That's how Jesus walked on water. Except he walked on the Sea of Galilee, which was a whole different... It was like a lake or a sea. I don't even know the difference. What's the difference between a lake and a sea? I guess that's just my American brain. I don't even know the difference. If it was the Dead Sea, that could make maybe a little sense. I don't know. Because I don't know how much salt actually, like, makes you float and all that, but... That would be an interesting one to, like, test if it was the Dead Sea and see if people could actually do that.
Beautiful followers, thank you so much. And if you're coming back to my channel, welcome back. And I hope that you're gonna stay. In today's video, I'm heading to the Dead Sea from Jerusalem. The place that I'm standing, it's called Mount Scopas in Jerusalem. Really far, you can see blue waters. That is the Dead Sea. That is the place we are going to. At the end of the Dead Sea, that is where we'll go. That is where Lot and his family used to live. And the place used to be a city, Sodom and Gomorrah, before God destroyed it. And then it became a mountain, Sodom mountain, a mountain of salt. Then we'll have a chance to see the pillar of salt that is believed to have been Lot's wife.
I like how she's like, is believed to be Lot's wife. And this is what maybe happened. I do have to wonder, like, at what point did someone go out there and see this, like, because they're probably going to show it on this video, like, this, I don't know if you guys have seen the pillar. It's just a stone that looks like, I don't even think it looks like a person, but it's just weird that someone went out there one day and was like, this is where this happened. Even though we have no historical record that these places actually existed or that any of this actually happened. It's like, I don't know. It's like someone, like, claiming their stake somewhere and then someone else coming and going, nope, it's mine, because she would have been eroded by now. Yeah, I don't think she would have lasted that long. And I don't know. If it's a rock, it can't all be made, like, Pillar of Salt makes me feel like she was completely turned into salt and not just rock. But I don't know how they're going to explain that, because I feel like those are very, I mean, there might be salt in rocks, but I don't know enough about geology to, like, say much about that, but there's definitely some probably science behind all that that would definitely make whatever they're claiming is something not actually be what it's supposed to be. It would be interesting, though, if we watch this video and then I find another video, like, from, like, an actual geologist or something that talks about that and, like, what actually happened to make this, you know, it's not really even a statue, just this rock that they think is what they claim it is. I might have to do that now after we watch this. Not today, but maybe tomorrow.
You remember Lot's wife turned into a pillar of salt. Today we are going to visit this place and see the pillar of salt. Then under the pillar of salt, that is where Lot's wife was buried. So today we are going to visit that place. So please, please watch the video until the end.
How did they bury her if she turned into a pillar of salt? That doesn't make any sense. Like, there would be nothing left of her. Okay.
This is gonna be a
Bible
road trip. Road trip through the desert, Judean Desert, then Arad's Desert, the Dead Sea. Guys, you're gonna love it. So thank you so much and welcome. Let's go now. Thank you, guys.
Driving down the highway, feel like we need music here.
Wow.
Road trip.
Guys, look at that desert. Judean Desert. So beautiful.
She's from Kenya, so she has an accent. I don't see anything wrong with it. But I've been to churches with people who are from like Kenya, so I guess I'm kind of used to that, but ads. Go away, ads. The ads hate me.
Opti-wash cycle set for 6.
It gives me music to dance to. Okay.
Wow, I love this landscape. Wow. Wow.
It's crazy that there's like nothing out there. It's just desert. Okay. Yeah, I was just saying there's a lot of, it's just desert. Like, there's nothing out there. Judean Desert. I don't know why she felt that she needed to, like, record the entire drive there. You need a montage, girl. Get a montage. I mean, the desert is pretty. There's just not much out there to, like, see, except desert, so what are you gonna look at?
The sea level. That sea starts here.
Sea level. Turn that down. Turn it up. What is happening to my mic? Okay, there we go.
Heading to the Dead Sea. Yes, a lot of palm trees. You know, from palm you get the dates.
Oh crap, this is a lot of driving. Can we get to the actual place? Oh my gosh, like most of this video is, oh there we go. It's like trying to find the spot where she actually gets there, cause
Wow. Hi guys. Wow. I'm at the Dead Sea, the place where Lot's wife changed into a pillar of salt. Let me show you guys. Guys, can you see this?
is Twitch stuttering or is it the video? My video's not stuttering. Is your video stuttering? It's quite possible. Let me check my feed, because it always tells me if I'm good. Yeah, it says I'm good, so hopefully the video's not stuttering, but yeah, mine says it's fine, so
that is
Twitch had a freak
that
out.
was a woman, a wife of Lot.
There you go. There's Lot's wife up there on that desert top mountain thingy. I don't even know what to call it. That's what people think Lot's wife is. Oh my goodness. I don't know how people... I know it's like a part of their culture and a part of like what they believe, but give me DNA proof. Yeah, I don't think you can get DNA from salt.
You see? Oh my goodness.
I see rock and desert.
And the mountains are called Sodom Mountain. That is where Lot used to live. And remember, guys, remember the two cities that God destroyed? Sodom and Gomorrah. The cities were here. Wow, wow, wow.
Yes, the cities were in this desert where there's absolutely nothing out here. And no proof that cities existed out here. From my understanding, there's absolutely no proof that Sodom and Gomorrah even existed as, like, real places. I might be wrong about that, but I feel like a lot of the scholars that I've read say that they don't even know if those places existed because we have no, we don't have any evidence that these places existed. Well, yeah, Exodus definitely did not happen. Most of the stuff in Exodus is just a tale to, like, tell the origin story of a culture. Which, it's weird that they had to make up, like, a myth about how they became a culture when we can look back and we know exactly how they became a culture. Like, we've looked back at where these people actually came from. And we know where they came from and we know who they were worshipping, and it doesn't line up with the Exodus story at all. Exodus is a mushroom trip. I don't know. Revelation kind of is too, so... I think Revelation is worse for the mushroom trips. Although they have... Is it... Or Ezekiel. Is it Ezekiel where they have... Yeah, the wheels and the angels with the eyes, and... I guess that's also a mushroom trip. I have to wonder if people back in the day, if, like, those things that they saw were because of drugs, or if there was, undiagnosed mental illness in some of these people. Oh yeah, I think the world would be very much better because there would be no one to stop people from progressing, because everyone who goes up in the rapture are all the people who don't believe in science and don't believe in progress and want to live in this Bible utopia where the Bible rules over everyone. And if all those people go to heaven and we're all left here to just take care of the planet and take care of, their animals and other people, honestly, the world would probably be a better place because we wouldn't have so many people fighting against things like climate change. We wouldn't have so many people fighting against, women's rights and things like that, so. But, yeah. I do wonder if a lot of it was just drugs or mental illness. I don't know. Or, like, I know there's, like, illnesses you can get from eating, like, bad food and stuff, too. But I don't know if that would alter your mental state to a point where you would start having hallucinations. I mean, anything's possible at that point in time. Because in that point in history, when people were writing this, they didn't have science, they didn't have medicine. They had no idea how the human body even, like, functioned. And that's where we get that whole idea of a soul, because they didn't understand, like, there was a brain in your head that controlled everything. They thought there was, like, this spiritual thing that made you conscious and made you be able to, like, walk around and stuff. And they didn't realize that it was all interconnected to your brain. People didn't realize that till way later in history, so. But I don't buy that a place out in the desert with just a rock, people who claim that it's just a tourist trap, honestly. It's a tourist trap in the middle of the desert.
That is the Dead Sea. So guys, let's see. Lot's wife and Mount Sodom. Lot's wife is actually a mountain that is naturally sculptured in a form of pillar of salt, situated on Road 90 on the way to the Dead Sea. According to the biblical story, Lot and his wife were helped by angels to flee when God destroyed the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. The angels warned them not to look back, but Lot's wife couldn't contain her curiosity, looked back and turned into a pillar of salt. Mount Sodom, which is allowed 10 kilometers, 6 miles long, and 1.5 kilometers, 1 mile across, is essentially a giant salt trap. It is unique in that it is a salt plug in a dry region. The central part of Mount Sodom contains a cave with its entrance underneath the lock known as Lord's Wife, and it can be clearly seen west on Road 90. The cave has 2 chimneys, at the base of which
So just because this rock is like a salt mound, that's how they say that it's Lot's wife, because it's something that's not naturally occurring there, supposedly. But I'm sure if you go back in time, you can find some type of I mean, if there was at some point a body of water or something there back in the day, it's quite possible those salt deposits could have come from that. Or who knows? There's lots of things I think that could have happened to the territory that would make it change. And once again, I think if I talked to a geologist about this, I'm sure they would have a good explanation of why this certain mountain and this certain region has salt in it. But religious people aren't going to listen to that because, you know, they think that the earth was created in a way that it makes it look like these things are natural and that things are older than they're supposed to be. Basically, they tell you, well, in my church, basically, they told me, like, God made everything look that way because he wanted people to think that the earth was old, and which never made sense to me. So, like, you're literally telling me in church that God is a trickster God, and he is purposely tricking people to make them think that the earth is older than it really is, in order to trick them and make them think that he doesn't exist, even though he wants to have a relationship with us. Like, yeah, they do think apes are lower because, you know, according to the Bible, we are God's special creation. And if we're related to apes, then we're not God's special creation anymore. We're just another, you know, chain in the evolution. Well, yeah, we're just another link in the evolution chain, and that doesn't make us special and set apart. And just because we have the ability to, like, reason and think and speak and do all these things that other creatures on the planet don't seem to be able to do, they think that we're higher than everything else. Which is not true. Like, we're all part of the same planet, we're all part of the same natural occurrences that got us here, so. Oh, yeah. Yes, they do. Hi, Mr. Willis. We're watching a video on, this Kenyan went to see the Pillar of Salt that supposedly Lot's wife in... did he say Judea? It's by the Dead Sea. But after we watch this, and after we watch, I have another video on just, like, a tour through Jerusalem when Jesus was alive, so I think that's gonna be fun. But like I told everyone before, after this, I think I'm gonna have to go find, like, a geologist who actually knows, like, why this salt formation is in the middle of the desert. Because, like, they don't have a scientific plaque out here like this. Like, this is very much a religious plaque to serve people who already believe this story. But there's not, like, a science plaque out there that says, oh, but the reason that these salt mines are actually here is because of this. So I will see if I can find one like that, because that would be super interesting to figure out why that's out there like that. And I like to learn things, and I'm curious about things like that. So I think that'll be fun. I don't know if I can actually find anything about it, but if I do, maybe we'll watch it tomorrow. Yeah. So back to the salt mound that is Lot's wife.
Tunnel were formed from the dissolving salt that combined to form one tunnel close to the cave entrance. And this is a place.
So it's like a salt mine.
Wow. Can you see the lock up? Lot's wife? Underneath, it's a cave.
So yeah, that rock on top, people claim that's Lot's wife. When she turned into a pillar of salt. She turned into like that salt rock up there.
Wow.
Discover Linked Classic
ads, go
Recipe.
away.
Exceptionally smooth milk chocolate.
That is Lord's wife, where they buried her.
Oh, they buried her in that cave? Is that rock back there supposed to be like her body? I'm so confused. Also, that doesn't make any sense because if she was turned into salt and she's that rock on top, you can't bury her because there's nothing left. She's this rock on top of the salt pillar. Christian logic, people. It doesn't work. You can't have a body and be turned into salt. Unless, like, only her, like, arms and legs were turned into salt or something. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, that's a lot of desert.
Guys, can you see this? This is a pillar of salt. The locks. I need to touch it. I need to taste and really feel whether it's salty.
She needs to taste it? Okay. I would not be just licking something out in the middle of the desert, but...
Wow. Look. It's little salt.
I really hope she doesn't... Ugh.
Lily.
Oh, there she goes.
Wow.
Is she gonna...
For sure it is salt. It's so strong. Look. Mount Sodom.
Mount Sodom.
Guys, look at this. Wow. Huge rock, yeah?
That is a very big rock.
From here, it's
Oh,
you
there's her...
can see it very well.
There's Lot's wife.
Lot's wife.
Sitting up there on the pillar.
Guys, it's salt, you know? Look. And the salt here is so bitter. Like, it's not the salt that you can cook with. It's so bitter. Even when you are like swimming or floating in the Dead Sea, when you happen, that's the water happen to enter in your eyes. Wow, you have to wash your eyes with fresh water.
Ow.
Look.
I didn't even think about the salt water getting your eyes and like burning them. Okay, maybe I don't want to go in the Dead Sea now. That sounds horrible.
Guys, everywhere is salt. Can you see? Wow. Wow. Guys, look. Am I the only one who feel like this thing is awesome? The place is awesome, incredible.
I think just nature in general is incredible. But I feel like Christians take that a step farther when they say like, oh, this was all, like, all this happened because of God and because he turned this lady into salt. It just, like, backs up their confirmation bias that something's true when there's absolutely no proof for it. I think she's just gonna keep looking at the salt unless she's gonna go somewhere else. She's just... Alright, we saw that. I think I'm done looking at the salt. Boom. Let's see this amazing model of Jerusalem during Jesus' time. So it's going to have the Pool of Siloam, the Pool of Bethesda, Golgotha, Herod's Palace. I like this kind of stuff. I like when they can take, like, computers and make 3D images of things that, like, existed in a time that we didn't exist. Just so you can see, like, that time period and that culture and really get a feel for how things were.
Jerusalem attained her greatest splendor at any time in history during the period of the Herodian dynasty, from the reign of Herod himself 37 to 4 BC until the destruction of the city and the temple in 70 AD. As people said then, whoever has not seen Jerusalem in her splendor has never seen a beautiful city. I made a 3D model of Jerusalem to illustrate the beauty of Jerusalem in the 1st century AD. This model is based on the Holy Land model of Jerusalem that you can see in the Israel Museum in Jerusalem. My model is not as extensive as the Holy Land model and does not include the third wall and the structures within the area of the third wall. For more than 100 years, scholars have debated the location.
Let me get my models and let's take the city. I've never been to Jerusalem. I've only seen, like, pictures of it, so I don't know. I don't know how different it would be from, like, 1st century to, like, now. But, I mean, there's, like, main differences that we know, like, during those wars and stuff they had where they overtook the Temple Mount, and now the Dome of the Rock sits there instead of the Jewish temple. But I think, like, that's the main difference that I know, because I don't know a lot about the actual city during that time. And I think it'll be interesting to see, like, what still exists and what has been changed during that time.
Of the third wall, and still there is little archaeological evidence that would give a decisive answer as to its extent. Therefore, I decided not to include the third wall in my model. As you look at my model, you can see different sections of the city and characteristic structures that we will mention in more detail in this presentation. The city can be divided into sections that include the City of David, the Lower City, the Upper City, the Essene Quarter, and the New City Quarter. Additionally, you can see the characteristic structures.
Oh, of course they have to have a huge defensive wall. Israel is, like, the most, well, and Jerusalem. I feel like Jerusalem and Israel just in general are, like, the most warlike. Like, a lot more bad things happen in that region just because of that land and how, you know, so many different religions believe that that is their chosen land. Which is ridiculous. Like, we're all people. Can we just all get along and not fight over, like, land? But they're gonna fight over it because they think that that's the land that their God gave them. Even though a lot of them who fight over it, you know, kind of serve close to the same God. But just different enough that they fight. Although, you know, Muslims and Jews are much closer to each other religiously than Christians are. Christians are just like an offshoot of... I mean, Muslims are also an offshoot, but I think they stick, I don't know, closer to what the Jewish people believe. I don't know, I've always heard that, like, Jewish people and Muslim people are a lot closer to, like, how that region, like, actually worked and stuff, as opposed to, like, Christianity, which I feel like Christianity today has been very twisted into, like, this Americanized version of it. But I guess that's because I'm from the Americanized version of it, where it's much different than, like, original, like, where Christianity originally came from and how it evolved over time into because American Christians are very, like, nationalistic and... Oh, excuse me.
such as the Pool of Siloam, Serpent's Pool, Herod's Palace, Hashmonian Palace, possible site of Golgotha 1.
I don't play Warhammer, but my brother does. He's like super into it. But I don't know anything about it. I just know my brother plays it and he really, really likes it.
Possible site of Golgotha 2, Antonia Fortress, Pool of Bethesda, the Temple area, and Queen Helen of Abyddin Palace. Currently we are looking from south towards north. Here you can see the Mount of Olives, the Kidron Valley, the Tyropean Valley, and the Hinnon Valley. And this is a modern landscape of Jerusalem.
Zoom in.
Where you can also see the Mount of Olives, the City of David, the Temple Mount, and the Old City covering most of the ancient lower and upper city of Jerusalem. So let's begin our journey from the Pool of Siloam. The Pool of Siloam is located at the bottom of the City of David. The pool was rediscovered during an excavation work for a sewer in autumn of 2004 by Ir David Foundation workers following a request and directions given by archaeologists Eli Shukron, accompanied by Ori Orbach from the Israel Nature and Parks Authority.
I do wonder if they had like maps back like in Jesus's time that like showed you these different things. Cause most people like they walked around and stuff in the city, so they had like if you didn't have a map, you would have to just know where things were. But I feel like just Jerusalem is a huge city, unless I'm wrong. Like from my point of view, from seeing it on that map, it seems like it's a very big city. But I don't know, maybe if you just walked everywhere, you knew where you were going. But I'm just wondering, like, if they had maps back then that, I mean, even if they did, it's quite possible they were destroyed. But, you know, having those type of things in the past to, like, know where certain things were located. Because, yeah, people will find these things and they'll, I guess, figure out what they originally were. But I have to wonder if they found them because they knew what was there during that time, or if it was just pure luck that they found these things and they didn't know what they were until they actually went and like looked into it. Sorry, I'm over here reading Leon's. He's talking about like the defenses of Jerusalem because he was saying he plays a game that like he understands that, so. Yeah, and I think because Jerusalem is such a center point in that region, they have to have that defense because, and like I know in Israel that everyone has to like have mandatory military service and things like that because they have to have like good defense because of the fighting over that land. Which is really sad because I feel like Jerusalem is probably like a really pretty city to go visit, and you know, even if I'm not a Christian anymore, it would still be interesting to go and look at, you know, the historical sites and where they think certain people might have lived and walked and stuff. And just because I don't believe it like religiously anymore, it would still be an interesting like history thing to go see and be like, oh yeah, people lived here at this time, and people did things at this time, and this is how they lived, and this is, where they went to the temple, and but it's a very unsettling place, I think, with all the wars and people fighting over things that don't matter. I don't think they matter. I think religion has caused a lot of harm in that region, because instead of people, coming together regardless of their differences and just sharing, they refuse to do that because they think that's the land that their God gave them.
Archaeologists Eli Shukron and Ronnie Reich, working with the Israel Antiquities Authority, uncovered stone steps, and it became obvious that these steps were likely to have been part of the Second Temple period pool. Excavations commenced and confirmed the initial suppositions. The find was formally announced on August 9, 2005, and received substantial international media attention.
Sign Now is an e-signature solution
2005
with some of the
doesn't really
most
seem
satisfied customers in the world. To find out more,
that
visit
long ago.
signnow.com.
At Sonobello Portland, we remove your stubborn body fat
I was still in
permanently
high school.
in just one visit.
I was a junior in high
The
school.
Pool of Siloam was built during the reign of Hezekiah to leave besieging armies without access to the spring's water. The pool was fed by the newly constructed Siloam Tunnel. An older Canaanite tunnel had been very vulnerable to attackers, so under the threat from the Assyrian king Sanherib, Hezekiah sealed up the old outlet of the Gihon Spring and built a new underground Siloam tunnel in place of the older tunnel. The pool remained in use during the time of Yeshua. According to the Gospel of John, Yeshua sent a blind man from birth to the pool in order to complete his healing. As the freshwater reservoir, the pool would have been a major gathering place for ancient Jews making religious pilgrimages to the city. Next, we have the city of David. The eastern hill on which David built his palace and the capital of Israel lost its significance as the main city life moved to the western hill. Josephus speaks of large palace structures on the eastern hill built by Queen Helen of Adiabene. The people of Mesopotamia built brick palaces which were completely different from all other buildings in the city. The other big building shown on this model is the Synagogue of the Friedman. This building has not been found, but Raymond Weil found an inscription referring to a synagogue built by Theodos, son of Vetanos, suggesting that the building was located in this area.
See, that's like interesting because they had like texts that told them that this thing actually existed, even though there might not have been a map. It just makes me wonder. Well, and I guess during that time too, they might have still been building a lot of things. And, things change over time. Cities aren't going to stay the same forever. But it does always make me wonder, like, if there was any point in time where there were maps for this place. I mean, it's quite possible. It's crazy to me that people can, like, the amount of time it takes, I feel it would take to, like, look into every single building and every single thing built over time. And probably just the lack of evidence we have for certain things. Like, we've probably lost a lot of things just to history alone, but it's cool to see them, like, recreate things that, existed at one time. Even if we don't have everything that's lost to history, we still have, like, glimpses into the past like this where we can say, oh yeah, this is what it looked like, and this is, we can actually look at that and look at the history and go, oh yeah, Like, we might not have everything. There might be things missing in the city, but they have a general idea of where certain things might have been because of certain historical records, so.
As we move north, you can see the Saturn Temple entrance and exit called the Hulda Gates. I will not spend much time on the gates leading to the Temple Mount, as I made a special video explaining each gate in detail. I will put a link to this presentation in the description to this movie, so check it out. On top of Mount Moriah, we have the magnificent temple built by Herod. The city derived its main glory and status from the temple, around which its life revolved. At that time, the Jews were the only people whose religion required them to have a unique religious cultural center. The temple, therefore, became the sole focus of the entire nation. Multitudes of pilgrims visited it 3 times a year, sometimes as many as 100,000 pilgrims at a time.
That's a lot of
Jerusalem, at the eve of its destruction, had a population of 150,000 or perhaps even more. The Temple Mount was famed not only for its size, but also for its engineering and architectural achievements. Among the inventions and innovations introduced were bridges
6 feet away from each other. I don't think COVID existed in the 1st century. At least not COVID-19.
to relieve traffic congestion, and underground entry tunnels with ceiling carved by the best stone masons. The temple area can be divided into the temple building, the temple court, the court of women, the soreg, a special fence beyond which Gentiles were not allowed,
Oh,
the
not
court
allowed in there.
of Gentiles, and the royal stoa. The royal stoa was a majestic basilica that rose in the southern part of the Temple Mount, covering an area of 10,000 square meters, 50 by 200 meters. Of course,
That's interesting, because when I looked into like the temple stuff a while ago, after we read about like the tabernacle and stuff, I've looked into the temple stuff too, because I know like there's a lot of like how the tabernacle was set up was also how the temple was kind of set up. Temple of woman. No, it's just like the gates of women, or the court of women. It's the court of women. Women weren't allowed to go past that. Jewish women. So Jewish women could go within the court of woman, but they couldn't go any farther. And then like when you go into the farther ones, like only certain people could go there. So like they had people that like only Jewish men could go a certain way into the temple, and then only priests could go a certain way into the temple, and then only the high priest could go into the Holy of Holies, because that's where God supposedly was. But that the royal thing they were just talking about, like I always wondered what that was, because I've seen pictures of it and stuff, but they never really talked about it when I looked into like other videos that talked about the temple and like the different sections of it. So it's really cool to like see that on here, because they never really talk about that in any of the other temple videos, or like I don't know, just like articles and stuff that I've read about the temple. They kind of just leave that out, where they just kind of focus on like the main temple building and like, you know, the different courts and stuff. So that's something new I learned today, which is pretty cool.
temple requires a much better introduction, but
there
it's
you
a
go.
topic for another video, as in this material I am giving a general overview of Jerusalem. Here you can see a bridge connecting the Temple Mount.
I might have to find his temple video later. I don't know if we'll watch that together, but I think this stuff is interesting and I like watching it, so.
with the Mount of Olives. According to the Mishnah, the ceremony of burning the red heifer took place on the Mount of Olives. The bridge was used so that the priests would not touch any dead bodies, as the cemeteries were located below. The Mount of Olives was also the location of the Garden of Gethsemane, where the olive trees were planted and olives were pressed to receive olive oil. Today, in this garden, you can still find olive trees that are almost 1,000 years old.
Garden of Gethsemane.
Attached to the northern wall.
That's where, like, Jesus went to pray before he was crucified, supposedly. I think the Mount of Olives is where Jesus is supposed to, like, come back to. Because I think he's supposed to, like, come out of heaven and, like, land on the Mount of Olives. When he's supposed to come down and be the Messiah at the end of time. I feel like the Mount of Olives is, like, a huge, like, pinnacle point in Christianity because... And maybe, well, I guess not Judaism as much because it was mostly the New Testament where they talked about that and where Jesus did things on the Mount of Olives. I wonder why that is, like, the place. I guess if they say that's where, like, where the Garden of Eden is, I'm sure they somehow tie that into it being part of God's plan or whatever they claim.
Of the temple area, you can also see a large pool. This is the so-called Pool of Israel, believed to have been built by Romans for use as a water reservoir and also to protect the northern wall of the Temple Mount. Next, we have the Pool of Bethesda. Today, the remains of this pool are associated with the site of the pool in the current Muslim quarter of the city, near the gate now called the Lion's Gate or St. Stephen's Gate, and the Church of St. Anne that was excavated in the late 19th century. The name of the pool is said to be derived from the Hebrew or Aramaic language. Bethesda means either house of mercy or house of grace. In the Gospel of John chapter 5, we read that during the Shabbat, the site was visited by Yeshua, during which he heals a man who has been bedridden for many years and could not make his own way into the pool. A very important structure was also Fort Antonia, on the northern western side of the temple. I will not spend much time on Antonia Fortress, as I have also made a video discussing the structure and its location. If you would like to learn more, check out the link in the description of this video. For now, I will just mention a few things. The Antonia Fortress was a citadel built by Herod the Great and named for Herod's patron Mark Antony as a fortress whose chief function was to protect the Second Temple.
I didn't even know there was a fortress built to protect the temple, so that's a new one for me too, because, you know, I've always been shown, like, the wall around the temple, and I always thought that was just how they protected it, but I guess they also had this fortress that protected it, which makes sense. If you want to protect things, you want to have more than one way to protect it. But, you know, once again, that's not something that I was ever, like, taught about and learned about when I was in church. I guess it wasn't important to know the structures in Jerusalem.
Fortress housed some part of the Roman garrison of Jerusalem. It is also believed that the area around the fortress also functioned as a space to hold barracks for additional Roman soldiers. Archaeologists have found the Strophion pool that would have provided water for the Roman soldiers garrisoned here. Traditionally, Christians have believed for centuries that the vicinity of the Antonia Fortress was the site of Pontius Pilate Praetorium, where Jesus was tried for high treason. This was based on the assumption that an area of the Roman flagstones discovered beneath the Church of the Condemnation and the Covenant of the Sisters of Zion was the pavement which John 19:13 describes as the location of Jesus' trial. Going west and north, we have the traditional location that
The whole trial of Jesus is a whole other historical matter, because even if it had happened like they claimed, which it couldn't have happened like they claimed, because there's a lot of historical issues with, saying that it was the religious people, I think it was the high priest who supposedly, said that Jesus was blasphemous or whatever. But if you look in the Bible, it says, you're supposed to stone people like that. And so if he was, condemned by the person in the temple, he would have been stoned. But because he was crucified, it was the Romans who, got, arrested Jesus and carried out his crucifixion. I don't think, from that story and from what I know of history, I don't think the religious people of that time had much to do with that, because there's different ways of killing people, and they wouldn't have had the Romans kill them on a cross for that. How he said it was treason, it's because he was trying, I think he was a failed Messiah who was trying to overthrow, the government of that time and become king of the Jews and become, what they believed the Messiah would be. And I mean, it makes a lot more sense when you look into what the actual Messiah was supposed to do versus what Christians claim the Messiah was supposed to do, because those are two different things. And that was my first video I made on YouTube. I just realized that, the reason why Jesus can't be the Jewish Messiah is because he didn't fulfill the prophecies that were written down in the Old Testament as the Jewish Messiah. But I honestly believe that he was, if he existed at all, if he was a real person, I think he was someone that was just trying to be the Messiah. He just did it at a very bad time in history where, Rome was in charge of everything and they weren't gonna take crap from anybody. So if you tried to do anything like that, they'll just get rid of you. And I think that's what happened in his case, if it was real. But there's a lot of myth that is mixed into the Jesus story, which is why some people are, we get the whole mythicist versus historical Jesus. But I guess for me, like I said, I'm still on the fence. I don't know. There's just so much of a mixture of myth and truth that could have been. But for me, if Jesus was a historical figure, that's what I believe. I think he was just a failed Messiah. But at the same time, I don't even know if Jesus existed. But at the same time, for me, it doesn't really matter if he existed or not, because, I'm not betting my eternity on a man existing or not, because that's just ridiculous in my mind to bet it all. They tell you not to put all your eggs in one basket, and I feel like that's what a lot of people in religion do. It's we're betting that the man who said he was who he was is the one true prophet of God. And that's how a lot of religions is. You're betting your eternal life on whatever person you choose or religion you choose for eternity. But, yeah, even if it had happened, the way that it's told in the Bible is very more story-like, because we know certain things that were said about Pontius Pilate and about, the trial that happened didn't, there's no record that these things actually happened. The whole Barabbas thing and, letting a prisoner go and letting a prisoner live, that was a complete mythicized event. And I wish I could remember what Barabbas means now, because when you actually look at it, it means something that... Oh, I'm gonna have to look at it now, because my Bible knowledge is in there. It's just not coming out the way I want it to. Barabbas. Barabbas meaning. So... I know it meant like something specific. Son of the father or son of the teacher. Huh. I don't remember what they told us in church it was, but basically because we know how, you know, the courts and things worked back then, we know that a lot of the story is myth, because we know it wouldn't have happened during like a festival, and it wouldn't have happened, you know, he wouldn't have been killed on a cross if it was for blasphemy. You know, the whole idea that he was killed by the Romans for being a traitor makes way more sense. And even just, you know, the Barabbas story is a complete mythicized version of what actually happens in the courts. You know, they didn't actually do that. And some people, even some scholars even say like that whole story was just made up to make the Jewish people look bad and make it look like they're the ones who killed Jesus. Because Christianity and Judaism has had a very long history of fighting each other and blaming each other about who killed Jesus and who's right and who's wrong. And it's kind of ridiculous because, once again, we're fighting over things that, in my opinion, don't matter. But, I mean, even if they did matter, fighting about it is not going to get anyone anywhere that they need to be. So, I don't know if this is still working. Okay, that's fine, Leon. If you need to go and rest, that is totally okay, because I get it. At the end of the day, people can get tired, especially when you have to do medical stuff. Alright, back to Jerusalem.
That some Christians believe was the location of Golgotha. Today, this site is located north of the old city of the modern Jerusalem, close to the Damascus Gate. The Garden Tomb is a rock-cut tomb in Jerusalem, which was unearthed in 1867. The Garden Tomb is adjacent to a rocky escarpment which today stands above an Arab bus station.
A bus station? Half the skull. Oh, I see it. It was like the rock.
I get so excited when I find a beauty
be where
product that
Jesus
is
was
100%
actually-
cruelty-free, vegan, and plastic-free, and also works.
Since 1894, the Garden Tomb and its surrounding gardens have been maintained as a place of Protestant worship and reflection by a Protestant non-denomination charitable trust fund based in the United Kingdom named the Garden Tomb Association. As such, the Garden Tomb stands as a popular site of pilgrimage for many Christians, especially evangelical Anglicans and other Protestants. I will make a separate video dealing with the location of Golgotha, therefore I will not spend more time on this site in this video. To the west of the Temple Mount, we have another...
So do they think that was the tomb of Jesus? Even though I know there's like a church in another part of Jerusalem that claims they have the... Or is that the birth of Jesus? I think one of the churches has where they think he died, or he was buried, and there's another church that had like where he think he was born. But that was Bethlehem, so I guess that would be a whole different city.
another possible location of Golgotha. Today, on this site, we have the famous Church of the Holy Sepulchre, located in the Christian quarter of the Old City of Jerusalem. I made a presentation about this church and the tradition connected to it, so make sure you check it out. I am leaving a link in the description of this film. As we move south, you can see the 3 towers built by Herod the Great. The towers were named after important people in Herod's life: Hippicus, a friend, Faisal, his brother, and Mariamne, his wife. According to Josephus, the Roman general Titus destroyed the entire city but decided to save Herod's 3 towers and a section of the western city wall because he wanted to show Jerusalem former strength, and he had soldiers stationed there using its living quarters. One of Herod's towers remains standing today. It has a solid base, and the top part was rebuilt by the Mamluks in the 15th century. It is sometimes called the Tower of David, but it was built by Herod and it is unrelated to David. Scholars disagree over the identification of this tower. Some believe that this was the Faisal Tower, and others believe it was the Hippicus Tower. At the top of the upper city, Herod the Great built a luxurious palace. In comparison with today's old city, Herod's palace stretched from the area of the Jaffa Gate to the southwest corner of the old city walls. The size is estimated to be 1050 times 415 feet or 330 by 130 meters. The palace was built on an elevated platform.
And my American brain over here is going, how many football fields is that? Because that's how Americans measure things. How many football fields is that palace?
Archaeological evidence of which has been found in excavations in the so-called Citadel of David. The platform was made of series of retaining walls 13 to 16 feet 4 to 5 meters above ground level. Excavations by Amiran and Aiton revealed some parts of the superstructure, which included sections of painted plaster. The construction of the podium covered over some remains of the Hashmonian buildings. The palace had 2 main wings, named after Agrippa and Caesar, 2 important friends of King Herod. Each wing had its own banquet halls, baths, and accommodations for hundreds of guests. The palace was surrounded by groves of trees, canals, and ponds, and studded with bronze fountains. Philo and
I do wonder, like, because we know in that time, like, the Romans had really high taxes, so, like, people were, like, you know, like, the kings and stuff were, like, super, super rich, and then everybody else was super, super poor. So I have to wonder, like, just how well off they lived in that time period, like, to be part of the monarchy and live in the grand palace, and what they actually experienced versus, you know, what we would typically read in, like, the Bible, where people didn't have money and there were a lot of beggars and there were a lot of people who had medical issues and they weren't able to always get food and things. It seems very prevalent in a lot of places today, where there's, you know, you got the people at the top and then you got the people at the bottom. Which sucks, because I don't think everybody should be equal. I think some people having billions of dollars does not help unless they're actually helping people, but I don't want to get on a rant because I just finished Squid Game today. So I'm just like, it's all right here in my head. And I'm like, I want to talk about it, but I don't want to talk about it. But I know some people haven't seen it, so I definitely don't want to ruin it for people if you haven't seen it. But it goes a lot. It just gets my mind thinking a lot about, you know, Squid Game is very much more about our time, but it's very similar to this time where, like, the rich people are super rich and the poor people are really poor, and how it all just, you know, makes life function. But it's not great for the people. Squid Game's so good. Yeah, I just finished it today, so, and now I'm just like, I heard they're gonna make a second season, and now I'm just like, come on, make the second season, because I want to see it. But yeah. It gets my mind thinking about those things. And I guess, if you look at it, our civilization is not much different from that civilization today, because we have a lot of, you know, there are a lot of people at the top, and there are a lot of people at the bottom right now. And hopefully that changes in the future, but it doesn't seem to be going that direction, but we'll see what happens. Yes. If you haven't seen Squid Game, watch it, because it's amazing. But it's also, like, rated MA, so if you're not into, like, I don't know, I'll just say violence. Anything that's violent, if you don't like that, don't watch it. But if you're okay with violence... I just know some people in my family, there's no way they would ever watch that because they hate that kind of stuff. And I watch horror movies, so, like, it's not a big deal to me, but I know some people would just be like, nope, too much for me.
Josephus testified that the Roman governors stayed in Herod's palace while they were in Jerusalem and carried out their trials on the pavement immediately outside it. Archaeologists therefore conclude that in the 1st century, the Praetorium, the residence of the governor, was in the former royal palace on the western hill, rather than at Antonia Fortress on the opposite side of the city. However, as the tradition retained its power in associating the fortress with Yeshua trial, the place where it once stood serves as the starting point of the Via della Rosa commemorating the crucifixion of Yeshua. The last two structures on this model that I would like to mention is the Palace of Annas and Caiaphas and the Hashmonian Palace. Known as the Palacial Mansion because of its unusually large size, it is now part of the restored Herodian Quarter. This structure contained 4 ritual baths, one evidently built to serve a number of people, with 1 door for entry and 1 for exit. This, coupled with the traces of great conflagration found in the Palacian Mansion, point to the possible identification of this residence with the palace of Annas, the high priest. Josephus records Annas' palace as having been burned in 70 AD. Lastly, we have the Hashmonian Palace in the city, located in the upper city opposite to the Temple Mount. Attempts to locate the Hashmonian Palace archaeologically have not been successful, though some have identified the palace with the one of the houses excavated by Nachman Avigad in the Herodian Quarter. Few agree with this identification. This concludes our tour of Jerusalem in the 1st century AD. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. As always,
okay, I find that interesting, and I think that was really cool, but I don't know if you guys like that or not. If you don't like stuff like that, we can do other things, but I don't know. It's interesting to me, and it just brings, you know, history to life in a way that I appreciate, and I very much appreciate that we have, like, the technology to do that today. and look at cities like this and go, oh, this is how that city looked in that time. And especially being raised in, like, the church, they always talk about, like, you know, certain things, like he said, like the Pool of Siloam or Shalom, or I'm sure I said that wrong. But, you know, I have heard some of those places from growing up, and I didn't know where they actually were, so actually get to seeing them and seeing what they would have looked like in Jesus's time is interesting. And just how big those buildings looked. Huge. Like, I feel like the elite in that time just, like, instead of having big monster trucks, they had big buildings. But yeah, that was cool. I like that kind of stuff. And even just that, like, I can mix in some of the, you know, Bible knowledge that I do have that go with certain things. So that was exciting. This has been a fun day. Thank you everyone for coming. Big thank you to my Patreons. If you guys want to be a patron, you can go to patreon.com, Overprotected Atheist. Thanks for watching videos with me, and thank you for your support being on here. I also have a YouTube channel if you haven't seen it, Overprotected Atheist. I do mostly animations over there. I haven't been working on them as much though lately because I've been working over here a lot more, but I do want to make an animation soon, and I do believe that Tobin is going to possibly make another one soon, so thank you, Mr. Willis. I'm glad you came to hang out today. It was fun. I did it later than normal because I had stuff to do this morning, but hopefully I get on. I think tomorrow I can get on earlier, but I have to be off. I have an appointment at 12 tomorrow, so I might have to do it earlier or just do a shorter one tomorrow morning. So I hope everyone has a wonderful night, and hopefully I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye, friends.